Hi, I'm Maggie Apel, co-director of WILMA's Leadership Initiative. Welcome to WILMA's Leadership Accelerator Virtual Workshops for Real Leaders.
And I'm Vicki Janowski, also co-director of WILMA's Leadership Initiative with Maggie. And we just want to thank you for joining us. Every week this month, we'll have a different conversation about leadership topics from area women. Also this month, this marks the 5th anniversary of when Maggie and I launched Women to Watch Leadership Initiative 5 years ago. We're very proud of the accomplishments that both the program and the women who've gone through it have done, so we'll be highlighting that as well on our social media channels, on wilmamag.com, and
to watch these videos and to learn more about WILMA leadership programs, visit wilmaleadership.com. Hi, welcome to WILMA's Leadership Accelerator, virtual workshops for real leaders. My name is Maggie Apel, and I'm the co-director of WILMA's Leadership Initiative. And today, we're here to talk about building connections through mentoring relationships. So today we have two guests with us, Donna Estevez and Melissa Philippi. Donna is the North America's Regional Supply Chain Manager for Corning Optical Communications, and Melissa is the president and co-founder of Performance Culture. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
thanks for having us.
So today we're talking about mentoring, right? And the reason that we invited you to talk with us today is because you two have been in a mentoring relationship. And I think from what I've talked to you about, it's been a very successful relationship. So we wanted to share with our audience your experience, your success stories, as well as the steps that you took along the way to build a relationship. We want to know challenges that you might have had, as well as how you wrapped up that formal mentoring relationship at the end. So before we get started, I'd love for you all to introduce yourselves and share with us a little history of your careers. So Donna, would you like to start?
Sure. My name's Donna Estevez. I am the North America Regional Supply Chain Manager for Corning Incorporated, Optical Fiber and Cable Division here. One of our plants is in Wilmington. I've been with Corning for 34 years, which is hard to imagine right out of school. Started out in engineering, went into operations management, and in the last 6 to 8 years I've been in the supply chain realm. So I've had some pretty significant career changes within the same company throughout the last 34 years. I have managed assets and people and timelines and budgets for over 30 years. Wow. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to get involved in mentoring, just so I can give back from the experiences that I've had.
Fantastic. That's amazing to be with one company for that long,
yeah,
too.
Yeah, it is unusual.
Yeah, great. And Melissa?
Yeah, and I've not been anywhere for 34 years, so it is, that was actually one of the coolest things, by the way, whenever we got to know each other.
Thanks.
I thought that was really neat. But yeah, Melissa Philippi, president, co-founder of Performance Culture, like Maggie was saying, and it is a software company here based out of Wilmington, which we have a lot of really cool software tech companies here, so I'm proud to be a part of that industry, but didn't start off that way. Started actually in finance and banking, so went through multiple retail banking and commercial banking routes, eventually got my certified financial planning designation, so I did that for a while, so definitely that same connection of just wanting to help people. And went through the financial crisis of 2008 and 2009, and that was super fun. And anyway, and pregnant and all of that, so made some decisions that this was just not for me. That was, I didn't know what, but it just wasn't that. So one of the things I think Donna and I connected with is the fact that we both have been in very male-dominated industries, actually. And through a series of events, I met my now business partner, Dallas Romanowski, and just kind of found out that I had this passion and a knack and a raw talent for people development as well that I didn't really know I had. So our software is around helping build better teams for better results. So anyway, long story short, we decided to do this little thing called Performance Culture. So we've been doing that now for 5 years, and it's going well.
Good. Great, great. Well, it's good to learn a little bit more about you and your history of your careers thus far. So, so as I mentioned, you all had a mentoring relationship. Donna, you served as the mentor. Melissa, you served as the mentee. And let's just jump into, how did you start your communication? How did you start your relationship? What specific either communication or task, what did you do specifically to really engage in that initial conversation?
You remembered this.
Yes, I did.
It first started with Rob giving me a phone call, said, hey, you want to do this? And I was like, this is a good idea, sure. But then, I didn't remember the story, you did.
Yeah. So what we decided on just over the phone was to meet on a monthly basis. We'd start out with that, get to know each other, and do it kind of informally over lunch. So we met for lunch the first time, introduced ourselves. I think I may have met you in interview situation with Wilma early on, so I knew who you were at least.
Yeah.
It was right off the bat, it was obvious that we're very much alike in terms of our personalities. We're both very much extroverts. We're both very much involved in our careers and in people development. And we're both very assertive kind of people.
No, I would never guess that.
So in some cases that can be difficult, especially when you get two assertive women together. But Melissa, you were just embarking like a year into your new business, and she's very much involved in coaching and leading groups of people. And so she thought the first question she asked me is, do you have a DISC profile? And I'm like, no, I've got the old Myers-Briggs assessment, and I can tell you what I'm ESTJ, but I don't have a DISC assessment. So she's like, would you mind taking one? And I'm like, no. So I'm like, cool. So she sent me the DISC assessment online. I took it, and then we kind of shared and compared results. And it was amazing how much we are alike. Like I had never met anyone as distinct as I am, because we are on far extremes in certain scales. But that was a really good starting point to really understand our underlying personalities and strengths and developmental needs, that kind of thing. So I think that's a really good way for anybody to start a mentoring relationship. And in one of the ones that I'm doing right now, we did that. And we shared our DISC assessments with each other right off the start.
So that's something as a mentor that Melissa, she was the one that engaged and wanted to say, you know, hey, let's do this. As a mentee, you're telling the mentor, I think we should do this to understand each other a little bit better and where we lie in communicating. So I think that's great. I think it's a great point that we'll talk about in a little bit later, but I love that. So so you started out and you met for the first time, you took the test. Where did you go from there? Who took the lead? I mean, did you have goals that Melissa, that you wanted to set? You know, it sounds like you were newer into the business that you started or co-founded. So did you have specific goals in mind that you wanted help or advice on those goals as you were setting up your business?
Yes, and well, I mean, to be frank, I didn't, the way that I came about it may be different than maybe some of the other mentor programs. In the early stages, I think, of the mentoring program here, and there was a slot available, and I was asked if I wanted to, so I didn't pursue it directly, so I don't think I had a chance to think about what goals I wanted, but when the opportunity presented itself, of course, I started thinking about that. Honestly, one of the biggest things, you know, we do coaching and development, obviously, as a company too, and the further, we talked about this on the phone, when you rise through the ranks, and so to speak, the feedback does not tend to flow up as much as it flows down. Now it should, but you know, it gets lonely at the top, that statement, and you don't really have somebody also that you can go share your heart with or your concerns with, and you really can't go do that to your board of directors, clearly. You can't really do that to your employees or your subordinates. So I really was looking, frankly, for a safe place, a safe, unbiased third-party place to say, you know, here's some things maybe I'm struggling with, or here's some questions I'm having. You know, so that was one of my main goals, was just being able to develop a relationship so that when something came about. Now, not if, but when it came about, I had someone to go to, and we experienced that, and something did arise, and I was able to give her a call and pick up that phone. So that was probably my primary goal. I didn't really have any developmental skills or competencies that I was specifically looking for, even though I think you've done that with some of your other ones, and I think that is something a mentor-mentee relationship should define in the beginning.
Right. So at what level of personal kind of characteristics come out, or how much personal information do you share with one another as a mentee and a mentor? This is a professional relationship, or it's supposed to be, but how can you really, be yourself if you're going to share personal traits and personal thoughts and those kinds of things? But where did that lie in your relationship, or where does it lie still today?
How much do you bear all? Is that the
Yeah,
question?
there you go. That's the better way to ask that question. How do you bear all? Do you bear all? Do you just let it all out there? How much do you hold back?
I think it depends on the relationship.
Exactly.
I've had 5 mentees since it started, and all of them are different in terms of personality and developmental needs and why they are asking to be mentees. But I think some people, like with Melissa and I, we're pretty much open books.
Yeah.
So it didn't take long for us to get to know each other personally and professionally. With other people, they may not be that open or trusting right off the bat, so you got to kind of develop that trust.
So how do you do that? Not Melissa, because obviously you were able to build that trust pretty easily, but with someone else, another relationship, that you're going through, what are some ways that you can build trust?
I think you have to acknowledge it right off the bat. It's kind of like an elephant in the room with certain people, because they've been burned maybe in other circumstances, and you've got to acknowledge it right off the bat in the first meeting and say, hey, unless you tell me otherwise, what we talk about is purely confidential. I'm not going to talk with anybody else about it. If I want to share it with in some other situation, I'll ask you if that's okay. And, I won't use names or whatever. But like Melissa alluded to, a lot of times in mentoring situations, you're being mentored by someone within your own company, or your work stream, or a peer, or a boss. And being mentored by someone outside of your company gives you a totally different, objective, safer kind of situation where you don't feel like you're risking much to open your soul. So I think you're probably much more receptive to that situation than you would be to some executive in your company that you're afraid of what you're saying, both politically and professionally.
Right. And that brings a good point. That's one of the reasons why we at WILMA decided to start this program, because we're talking with other successful women out in the community, and a mentor program is just that. A lot of businesses have them within their organization, but sometimes you need that outside perspective and that outside person with, to lend their ear to something that you might not feel as comfortable about talking to someone within the organization.
Right.
So
you almost don't want, some of my mentees don't want to admit their issue to their boss. Like I've had a mentee that was really, really worried about her supervisory skills. And you don't want to admit that to your boss, but you've got this situation with an employee that you want to deal with. How should I deal with that?
So what did you tell her? What advice did you give her?
Without getting too detailed, it was really just what I said before: confront the elephant in the room. As difficult as it may be, have the conversation with the person early on. Don't let it linger and get worse, because it becomes more difficult to do later on. So deal with the issue as soon as you can. Sit down, have a very non-judgmental kind of conversation about it. Ask what you can do to help, or what they think is causing the situation. Put the impetus on them, and then help them develop a plan for how to improve it. And communicate frequently thereafter.
We've done this
She's a good mentor, I think.
Yeah.
But again, like if you're at a certain level in your career, you don't want to admit, hey, I might not have that skill at this point. Maybe my boss think I should, but I don't, and I want to get help with it.
Right.
This is kind of a cool place to do that.
Well, one thing that I read, and I think we've had a little bit of conversation about it, is, you know, a mentor, you all are probably fairly, you know, around the same age, let's say. Maybe you're a little bit older, I'm giving you credit here. But the thing is that you've got the knowledge.
I'm not touching that one.
But you have the years of experience.
Correct.
And you've got that perspective that maybe, you know, Melissa, you don't, just because you're not quite as old, or you haven't been working at Corning for 33 years and, you know, 5 different departments. And Donna, you've experienced so much. So I think that's really key in identifying that mentor and mentee relationship, is you want someone with that experience perspective. That's the ear you want, right? You want someone to bounce ideas off of as a mentee, because you haven't experienced maybe the things that Donna has, and she's able to help advise you or you know, talk you through a project or problem or goals or whatnot.
I think that's very key, Maggie, you're talking about, and really it's from a mentee standpoint, can you have, frankly, the humility to go, I don't have it all figured out right now. I can stand on the shoulders of those that have gone before me, so to speak, right? I can tap into their knowledge. Are you humble enough? Are you wise enough to say, even if I'm in a president role running a company, I should have it figured out? There's a draw there, right? To feel like you've got it all figured out. But I think that when you say, like, look, you're never going to stop learning. Someone always probably has something in your life. You know how people come in and out of your life at different times? I believe that's for a reason. You know, they are there to shape you and mold you just as much as you are there to shape and mold them, and to make you into a better person, to grow you as a person, your character traits, your skill sets, all of these things. So I think that, you know, the program from a mentee, how they should, you know, approach this is, what is there to learn? Let me explore, let me dig. That was kind of, for me, that's kind of what it was with Dawn. I was like, I'm not sure, but like you said, I know she's got a lot of wisdom and experience. And I want to be around when I need to tap into that, and I just want to be a sponge.
Yep.
And I think that's what we were able to do.
Yep. So do you have any particular experiences or whatnot, something that, you know, were there any highs or lows? Did you have to have any challenging conversations or
remember that one
anything
time?
like that?
I'm just kidding. Not really.
Not really.
No, I know you called me from the road one time, or you were frustrated about a situation, but I don't remember the details of it.
I do.
But,
But we're not going to talk about it on camera.
So if Donna was able to maybe talk you down a little bit,
or here's what
yeah,
I would
talk
suggest.
you through. Yeah.
Honestly, that was that male-dominated thing that I was talking about.
That's right, I remember that.
You know, you know, a lot of women probably watching this experience this at some point, you know, and I love working with guys. They obviously bring a lot to the table, but there is still a thing there, right? There is still, just like there are for other inequalities in the workplace. So sometimes you need to, you know, we've got to balance like some of maybe where we're coming from and what the strengths as women we bring to the table, but also, frankly, how do I, maybe some of the things that hold me back because I want to be in that moment in it, and how it's going to perceive or come across to a male, be it right or wrong, I need some help in those conversations so that I can have that mutual goal and win the day. And that was really the crux of that conversation. And I knew, again, leaning on her experience, she's definitely had a lot of that.
Oh, yeah.
So it was helpful. But no, we didn't have any, I mean, I don't know if you've had any other experience, any kind of challenging situations, but I think also if you enter it with honoring the other person, recognizing, respecting that person's time, respecting that that person is giving of themselves. So I think if you bring your full self to this relationship, and to her point of what she was coaching that supervisor, if there is a point of conflict or something like that, the healthiest relationships, the healthiest organizations, any of that is when the distance between issue and resolution are the shortest time. So to go ahead and talk about it, or even lean into it, you know, hey, I think maybe there's something here, and I just want to ask if there is some kind of issue. If so, I want to make sure we make that right or figure that out. So, I mean, we didn't have that, but I'm confident that had we had any kind of rub, that we would have been able to handle it.
I think one of the key points to the process of mentoring, and Melissa was good with this, is that the mentee owns the responsibility of initiating the relationship, initiating the meetings, reaching out, making sure that they're scheduled on time, coming to the meeting, if they have a particular thing they want to talk about or work on, present it and be open as much as they can about it and be receptive to the mentoring relationship, if you will. But they take the onus. And Melissa's been very good at that. Most of my mentees have been very good at that. I've had one or two that have not, and it just falls apart then. Because quite honestly, I've got enough on my plate than to go, after trying to make the situation happen.
Right.
So
You're there to help them.
Exactly.
And you're there.
and I'm
and
happy
so-
to be there, yeah.
Right,
I want to
right,
help.
Right. And it goes back to you get out of what you put in.
Absolutely.
And so you put your, whole heart into it, then you're going to come out and say, oh my gosh, I have grown so much, I've learned so much, I've made it an amazing, colleague. And if you're not willing to do that, then maybe it's just, and maybe it's timing. Sometimes it's all timing.
Yeah.
You think you're ready for this mentor, you're ready for that relationship, but something happens and it just doesn't work out.
Yeah. And I could see where some people would be afraid to do it because they're not quite sure what it is or how formal or informal it has to be, or, if it's going to be a lot of work. It doesn't have to be a lot of work. It can be a lunch once a month where you're talking about a situation you're dealing with, and it's a back and forth thing too. I get as much out of it usually as the mentee does.
Well, that's good, because I wanted to turn that, because I know you've mentioned that, your relationship in particular, Donna, you've mentioned several times, you got just as much out of the relationship as you did, Melissa, as the mentee, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, she's not your typical mentee. I mean,
I feel like, no, but that statement, iron sharpening iron?
Yeah.
And I think that is what I feel like we were doing with that. And, I think you can do that with a lot of females in your lives. If you hang around, you want to hang around people that you want to be like, right? And, people who have personal visions in lives that maybe you do not admire, maybe don't hang around them so much, Look at, folks that seem like to have it together or have some of your personal vision in line. Go after them, pursue them, hang around them. You're going to become, frankly, who you're hanging around. So, yeah, I think that's what we had together.
Yeah.
So we've gone through the relationship. We've talked about how you all met, how you connected for the first time, some things that you did throughout the program, the year-long program. How did let's say 12 months is coming to an end, did you actually formally wrap up the relationship and say, okay, Melissa, did you say, thank you, Donna, for the past 12 months? It has been great. I
love you, mean it, right?
hope we can stay connected, but, you've given me so much. I'm ready to spread my wings and fly a little bit, or whatever that was. But did you have, I think a lot of times we talk about the beginning of the relationship, with whatever kind of relationship it is. And we try so hard in the beginning, and then in the middle, you're kind of fizzling out a little bit. At the end, sometimes there's just not an ending. And one thing that we have been coached on is that, you do need to wrap up, and let's put some defined lines around, okay, this is a year-long program that you went through. There was an orientation, there was the middle ground, and then there's the wrap up. So did you all formally do that? Or if you did, how did it happen? Or if you didn't, what would you suggest in the outcome, I guess?
I think because we were involved in WILMA's mentoring initiative, you guys triggered kind of, hey, y'all, it's at the end stage, do what you want to do.
Right.
And Melissa and I think we just had one lunch where we said, okay, well, this is the end of the thing, and it's been great. I'd really like to stay in touch if that's good for you. Right. And we have. We don't meet once a month, but we've had lunch a time or two since then. I think it was last year or maybe 2 years ago, you sent one of your employees, you asked me, you called me and said, hey, would you mind talking to one of my employees? He's in my field, function, supply chain, and
he was an intern for us, and so, so that was his major, but then interning with us, and he was trying to figure out which fork in the road he takes, kind of thing.
Yeah, so I had lunch with him, had a great conversation with him, and tried to help him out. So, even though you may call it a finite end to the formal mentoring situation, if it's been successful, you usually have that person in your network now, and you know their strengths, and you know their backgrounds and their skills, and you know you can call on them if you need them. So, I don't feel like I've lost Melissa.
No.
So.
Yeah.
Well, it's coming back to your surrounding yourself, just like you alluded to earlier, surrounding yourself with people that are like you, and that connection that you
Or
made,
you want
that
to be
you're
like.
going to, or who you want to be like, and that connection is not just a minute thing that happened. It is something that, I mean, you have influenced each other's lives, and I think it sounds like we'll continue to do that and call on each other from, it might be once a year, it might be 2 years from now, but you know that you're there for each other, and I think I really like that whole picture.
It's been great.
Yeah. So if you all, kind of in closing, if you all could leave me and our audience with a piece of advice about mentoring in general, whether from a mentee or mentor perspective, but if there's one piece of advice that you could share with us to take away, that would be great.
For me, I would say regardless of where you are in your career or your life, you will always get something out of the relationship. So if you've got the opportunity, you should jump on it. Even if you don't think you need a specific thing worked on, you're gonna get something out of it. And you'll make a friend, you'll make a work contact, a network person, if at the very minimum. But you'll both get something out of it.
Yeah, definitely echo that. And I think for me, it would also don't expect perfection right out of the gate. So one of the things you were talking about with the wrap up, and for some people, this is the case, and I'm a part of church organizations with small groups. Sometimes the mixture of people, it is just awesome. It's just everybody clicks, the chemistry is great, and they will go on for several years together because it's working so well. But even those tend to naturally come to an end, and they decide, okay, this is the time in our life we do feel like we should probably disband and join another. Some small groups, about the semester, when it's over, everybody's like, okay, yeah. This is just, no one will have, it's not necessarily that someone has an issue with somebody or didn't click with someone, it's just the chemistry wasn't there.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm giving that analogy is that sometimes that would happen, and it probably has happened with you. I mean, there's some mentees and some mentor-mentee relationships that may just click. And you're like, this is the best thing since sliced bread. I don't think the kids say that nowadays, I sound really old, but anyway. And then some of them, it might not, it might be for that period of time, and to her point, you're gonna get something out of it anyway, and it's okay, but don't stop trying. Don't be like, I tried mentoring, it didn't work for me, I didn't get anything out of it, and hang it up. That's not how this works. You're always gonna be able to glean something, some type of wisdom from someone, if you're looking for that golden nugget, so just not to give up.
Yep, that's great. Well, thank you both so much. It's been an enjoyable conversation, and we appreciate you being here. I appreciate you both being in my life, and we want to thank everyone for watching today. Please visit wilmaleadership.com for this video and other leadership videos that we will be rolling out the month of June. This is Wilma's Leadership Accelerator virtual workshops for real leaders.